It's a beautiful Saturday night here in Framingham, Massachusetts at Bowditch Field as the New York Rumble, 3-5 on the season, are in town tonight to face your Boston Whitecaps, trying to cap off a perfect 10-0 season. We'll see what happens tonight. After 40 minutes here of Ultimate, Boston on your left will be moving right. Boston in their powder blue jerseys with the white sleeves. We haven't actually seen Boston wear these jerseys in quite some time, normally in their alternate black. New York will move right to left there in their black road jerseys with the green and yellow trim. And we are underway. Josh Marquette starting things off, getting it over to Danny Clark on the near sideline. Clark was actually absent from this one, and we get, there's a call against it.
Foul on the play.
There's a foul. Misha Horowitz was the intended target, and the disc will go back to Clark, but he's going to take 10 yards forward. A couple of steps here, and we'll get things going again. As I started to say, Danny Clark actually was out last week among a couple of other Boston players. Teddy Brouwer-Jarvis also out last week. Both players returned tonight. Still, Boston is without the services of Miles Montgomery Butler, and we'll see if he even is able to play come playoff time next week. We're here going again. Danny Clark swinging this one out back to center. Nice sliding catch there by Zid. Zid will hand it over to Pryl. Boston staying on that far side. Now here's Marquette. Good cuts so far for Boston. Cooper is going to hammer that one in, and waiting for it in the end zone, Peter Pryl. Boston quickly on top, 1-0 here. Cooper to Pryl, the connection. 8:42 left to go here in the first quarter. John Hirschberger set to pull here as we get our first look at the Boston defense as well as the New York offense. Again, New York coming in 3-5 on the season. The big game for them is tomorrow afternoon against DC. The winner will face Boston next week in Medford, Massachusetts for the first playoff game. That's Markey and Kuzmowicz handling there. Ben Faust now. New York without a couple of key players, namely Chris Mazer is out, along with Jonathan Figueroa, Jody Averdian, and Ari Weitzman all out. This is a big play there, and caught into the score is Faust, so New York quickly answers. Chris Wyke is set to pull here for New York. We're tied at 1, 8:15 left to go in the first quarter. That was a very quick score for New York. And Boston's offense, very low throw there. And it is no. Misha Horowitz does not catch that one. New York here in great position to score. That's going to be picked up by Lucas Murphy. Murphy, a lot of time, no one covering him. And not sure who in to score for that one, but New York does score. It is now 2-1. 2-1 New York on top now. 7:59 left to go in the first quarter. That score was actually Ignacio Ease, assisted by Jesse Bronner. And off a costly turnover for Boston, they'll start their offense again. Here's Marquette. Marquette bluffing the Huck. He gets it over to Pryl. Pryl quickly up to Danny Clark. Clark stumbles, and we got some contact, so a whistle will be blown, and that's a foul. So Clark again moving up. And I think he took one too many steps too far. Well, I think the refs are disagreeing where the disc should be put. So Boston, good position here. Here's Cooper. Cooper is the one who had the turnover. Cooper, a little scooper throw. Danny Clark just waiting at the edge of the end zone. Went right to him.
Receiving the upside down scooper.
Scuba throw from Alex Cooper. It results in a score for Danny Clark, and we're tied at 2. 7:22 left to go in the first. John Hirschberger set to pull again here for Boston. Their defense gave up a very quick score last time out, so we'll see what happens this time. This one's going to float in and drop about a little more than 20 yards shy of the end zone. Kevin Terry starting things off here for New York. Over to Webster McBride. Back to Terry. Oh, and a good D there by Hirschberger. Excuse me, that's actually Jake Taylor on the D. Wanted to take off, but Boston's going to take their time setting things up here, and we'll get a vertical stack. First cut is Hirschberger, and they swing it over to Taylor. Taylor will get it to Hatchett. Hatchett looking, gets it to Stevens. Stevens over to Reinhardt. Reinhardt sends it over to Hirschberger, the man who pulled it to start the playoff, ends up with the score. Good cut there by Hirschberger, and it's now 3-2. Boston back on top. 3-2, Whitecaps on top of the Rumble. 6:37 left to go in the first quarter. Last point scored by John Hirschberger after a tremendous D by Jake Taylor. And New York will get underway, getting it over to Kevin Terry. Boston implying a zone here. Markian Kuzmowicz. That's Hunt Alcott. And we're going to go for a huck. New York running this one down and in for the score. He was all alone. That's Terry. There were 3 Boston defenders trailing the disc, but no one could catch up to it. Back and forth we go, tied at 3, 6:20 left to go here in the first quarter. Boston offense will get another chance to take the lead back after a beautiful pull there from New York, all the way to the back of the end zone. There is a bit of a wind tonight. You can see the flags in the background. Going out to the left, so Boston going against the wind. Zid sending this one deep. Danny Clark's going to really have to run to catch this one down. Not quite in. He'll have to trail that one back, but a great catch. And a little toss over to Peter Pyle, makes the leap and catch, and in for the score. Great toss there by Zid to start this off. We'll get our first look at Will Neff pulling tonight. Neff pulled quite a bit last week and using the pull and trying to roll it. This time sends it deep. And Webster McBride handling right now. Working a little 2-man game with Andrew Bosco, and it floats up and over the head of Bosco, out of bounds. Head coach Dan Quaranta picks it up, and Boston will take over. Taylor starting things off, swinging it over to Neff. Neff trying to get it over to Hatchett. Hatchett with the dive, couldn't quite come up with it. Teddy Brouwer-Jarris was there as well, but only the grass caught that one, so New York taking over here as Aman Nawalde. That's Terry. Terry does already have a score in this one, and he'll back it up back to the end zone on the dump. Terry over to Bosco. Bosco gets it to Gillis. Back to Bosco. Boston doing a nice job defensively here. Back to Terry. Terry threatening the huck. Instead they get it over to Bosco again. Bosco finds Kuzmowicz. Back to Bosco. Bosco really the main handler here for New York. Oh, great layout D there. This is still up in the air. Kuzmowicz trying for it. And Will Neff with a great play on defense. Jake Taylor will set things up. And he's going to huck this one deep. Will Neff, he's got space. You read it, he leaps up, he makes the grab. 5-3, Boston on top. 4:25 left to go in the first quarter. Will Neff doing it all right there in the layout D, and the touchdown grab. Boston defense back out on the field, and John Hirschberger is going to pull this one. Boston on top, 5-3. Going against the wind right there as Ross Littauer and Chris Waite. Good effort there. New York able to catch that one though. Ben Faust now. Faust guarded by Mike Miller. Faust over to Nawalde. That's Alcott. They get it back to Nawalde. There's Littauer again. Ooh, great leaping and extending the arm grab there by Faust. Faust, hammer throw into the end zone, not quite able to catch up to it was Corey Lee. Like he tried to catch that one a little bit like a wide receiver in football, just extending those arms out, trying to cradle the disc and let it fall in, but to no avail. So approaching 3.5 minutes here in the first quarter. Robin Myers walked it up the end zone and gets it over to Hirschberger. Hirschberger looked like he wanted to go deep and ends up giving a little bit of a bump. Or they're going to call against New York.
With the marking foul.
That foul going against New York's Ben Faust. Hirschberger over to Stevens. Stevens going to send this one. That's Casey Turp trying to read that one. He can't get it. Throwing to go one-handed. That one bent a lot to the left. Remember, Boston is going into the wind, though it does seem it might have died down just a little bit there. Wind maybe playing a factor. Here's Faust again. Faust guarded tightly by Hirschberger. Boston trying to force them on that flick on the far sideline. Herman now. And this is a deep pass intended for Lee again. Can he grab this one? No, and he does! Robin Myers with a great attempt on a layout D, but it's Lee comes up with it. 5-4, Boston still on top, and New York hanging in there here in the early goings. We've seen this a few times this season with Boston. The opponent able to keep it close relatively through the first half. In fact, they've trailed a couple of times at halftime, that is Boston. And right now, New York just down one. Misha Horowitz handling. Ooh, good attempt there on defense. Peter Pryl able to come up with it. Over to Marquette. Marquette getting it to Clark. Clark quickly swinging it over to Cooper. Boston moving quick. Peter Pryl, nice leaping grab there. Pryl over to Clark. Boston moving down the field very quick. Clark with a Scuba. A Scuba throw finds Marquette in the end zone. Will Neff will pull. And New York's offense will take over. That's Terry starting things off over to McBride. McBride getting it over to Kuzmowicz. And this is going to float up in the air. Terry Roth's going to have a play on it, and he does. He gets the D. Nice play there for Terry Roth. Will Neff picking it up, and they're going to try and reward Roth. It's going to be close, and Roth able to keep that inbounds. There's a little backflip for the score. 1:46 left to go in the first quarter, and John Hirschberger ready to pull for Boston. After a great D by Terry Roth, that disc really just floated up there, and anytime a disc is floating and you got a couple of men there waiting underneath it, it's always a dangerous game. Terry Roth comes out the winner of that one. Here's New York's offense. That's Rob Baker. First time we've seen him tonight. Over to Gillis. Gillis gets it to Herman. Herman having a tough time getting it around Casey Turp. That's Bosco. Bosco. Now here's Herman again. Herman back to the tower. Back to Bosco. Over to McBride. New York trying to answer here. Keep this score close. It's 7-4 as we approach a minute left. There's Bosco. And this one's going to float a bit. That's John Hirschberger making the D. Again, those floating discs are causing some problems there for New York. That's back-to-back possessions that they've turned it over with a disc that floats up in the air. Robin Myers starting things off. Gets over to Mike Miller. Miller over to Doherty. Doherty and Stevens connecting, and we get a whistle as the clock continues to tick away. And we get some contact back against Stevens, so he'll back the disc up and put it back in play. And here's another whistle. Refs are going to discuss this one. And just got to correct the clock. 31 seconds left here. Boston probably trying to work the clock in their favor and come up with a score just as the quarter closed. Hirschberger now. Hirschberger is going to send this one out for Doherty. Doherty reading it all the way and in for the score. Will Neff set to pull here for Boston. There's only 24 seconds left to go. New York ended up calling a timeout here, trying to get a score again and keep this game within reach before the first quarter comes to an end. Just 24 seconds. And they'll have some time. They've shown an ability to work quick down the field. That first score they had only took about 30 seconds, and Neff is going to roll this one and let it roll out of bounds. So the disc will be placed about, we'll say, 26 yards ahead of the end zone. So decent position to start here for New York, and that's Kevin Terry receiving there. Ooh, what a big layout attempt there for the D. It was Terry Roth. Doesn't end up getting it, and New York will get it in for the score. That's 77, Webster McBride coming down with it in the end zone. That'll get Boston a mere 6 seconds to try and get that 4-goal lead back. It's 8-5 now. Boston still on top. Just 6 seconds to go here for the Whitecaps, trying to get that 4-goal lead back as Chris Weikes pulls for New York. We've seen this situation before. They'll let the disc fall and walk up to the clock should not have started, and they're going to just hammer it over to Anderson. Anderson's going to huck it down the field. Did he get it off in time? It's not going to matter because he's not going to get in the end zone. So that's the way the first quarter comes to a close. Boston will end it on top by 3. It's 8-5. Boston did a nice job defensively in that first quarter. A couple of nice Ds. Terry Roth having a few, and he made a valiant attempt on one towards the end of the quarter down in the far side corner off to your left, and was not able to come up with it. And Will Neff will pull this one to start. New York receiving, and it'll come right down in the hands of Andrew Bosco. Bosco sent it over to McBride, and back to Bosco. That's Terry. Terry going back to Bosco. New York really working with a 3-man unit here of Bosco, Terry, as now this one is sent deep down and caught by Hunt Alcott. Hunt Alcott will flip this one up and into the end zone for a score. Quick point there for Gillis. New York will pull. 9:30 left to go. Whitecaps on top, 8-6. Again, Boston playing without star player Jeff Graham tonight. He is not injured. He is just an excused absence as Peter Pryl sends this one over to Danny Clark. Very low throw, but a nice grab there by Clark. New York without a couple of key players as that pass intended for Zid. He laid out for it, but just couldn't come up with it, so New York will take over. Andrew Wilkes sending that one over to Weikes. Weikes dumping it back. Zid was right in the middle of that one. Couldn't come up with it though. Lucas Murphy. And another layout attempt on D there for Marquette. A couple of players on New York with no number. One is Ignacio Ease, excuse me. The other one, Jesse Bronner. 47, Lucas Murphy, and that's Cox throwing this one out and trying to reel it in, and he does. New York able to score. Alex Cooper couldn't quite grab that one. Now it's a 1-point game. 8:28 here in the second quarter. Boston now on top just by 1. It's 8-7 after the catch by Austin Raymond, reeling that one in for the score. New York hanging in there. I started to say, again, New York out. A couple of key players, Chris Mazer being the big one, is out. However, Mazer being a leading player on this team, he will play tomorrow against DC. That game means everything. Both teams with identical 3-5 records trying to make the playoffs and face Boston up in Medford next week. Boston still at home, even though not playing here at Bowditch. Ooh, and Peter Pryl sending a hammer out for Marquette, and he lays out, can't come down with it. Great attempt there by Marquette. So New York will have a chance here to tie it up. Be the first tie since it was 2-2. New York moving quickly. That's Wilkes, excuse me. Wilkes trying to find someone to give it to. Finally does. Now over to Murphy. Ross at the tower. And that Joseph Anderson getting involved for the first time tonight. Anderson again couple little give and goes here for New York. Anderson not finding anyone to go to. Over to Lee. Back to Anderson. Anderson really involved in this point. The tower. Back to Lee. Back to the tower. New York keeping it right in between those four guys right there as Rob Baker, nice layout grab there. Here's Anderson again. Anderson back to Lee. Lee over to the tower. Here we go again. Tower. Nice throw there. And we'll get it back to Lee. Lee finding Wilkes. Lee being the primary handler here for New York. As he's in the center. And I'll send it over to the near side. That's Baker again. Back to Lee. New York taking their sweet time moving the disc up the field. Anderson again. They're going to give it back to Lee. Low throw there, but caught by Baker. Anderson and Baker again. Baker looking for the end zone this time and able to find it. In for the score for New York. It's tied up. 6:08 remaining here in the half. Ignacio Ease will pull for New York. Now he will pull for New York. And Robin Myers will receive this one for Boston. Myers quickly up to Horowitz. That's Hirschberger. A mix here with some of Boston's defensive players out on the field. Actually, mostly Boston's defense there. And Mike Miller in for the score off the throw from Will Neff. 5:52 left to go. Boston back on top 9-8, and John Hirschberger will do the honors of pulling once again as the lights have come on here at Bowditch Field. The sun going down. And Bosco will start things off here. That's Webster McBride. Guarded by Mike Miller. Over to Bosco again. That's Hunt Alcott. Bosco again. Back to Terry. Bosco and Terry have had a bit of a two-man game going on here most of the night. And there it is again. That is Faust. And we're going deep here. And, oh, that's tipped. Robin Myers was in much better position there. Well, that one off of Faust's throw. It was intended for Kuzmowicz. And Myers will start things off for Boston. Myers and Miller. Miller over to Waite. I haven't seen Chris Waite involved too much so far tonight. There's Robin Myers again. And Robin Myers is going to huck this one down. Speak of the devil, it's Chris Waite. It's intended for, and he does. He lays out and grabs it. It was floating a bit. I'm not sure if he was going to get there. But Waite with a tremendous layout grab. Stevens will throw this one up for Casey Turp. And Boston scored two straight. It's 10-8. 4:35 left to go in the first half. Will Neff will pull for Boston once again. They are on top 10-8 after two straight scores. That last one coming on the break. After it was a throw from Ben Faust that was tipped away by Robin Myers on the D. But Tower starting things off. That's over to Murphy, to Terry. Low throw to Ignacio. Again, Ignacio Ease with no number on his jersey. There's Terry. Terry will send this one out to Wycus. Wycus looked like he was going to go to the tower. That back to Ease. Ease has got it to Terry. Terry's going to send this one deep. Intended for Murphy. Murphy comes up with it. New York hanging in there. 4:03 left to go in the second quarter. Boston on top 10-9. Lucas Murphy will pull. Just scored the last point and stays out on the field. And that pull will drop 30 yards short of the end zone. And Alex Cooper starting it off, but quickly over to Misha Horowitz. And Horowitz wants to go deep right away. I don't know about this one. It's going to float out of bounds. So New York with a good chance here to tie things back up. And that's Baker starting things off. Over to Murphy. That's Lee. Lee sending this one deep. It's intended for Anderson. Zid's also there for Boston. And Zid leaps up. Anderson comes away with it though. And in for the score, Austin Raymond. We're all tied at 10 once again. New York putting on a nice display here against Boston. Boston trying to cap off a perfect season, perfect regular season, we should say. Chris Whitecaps had the pull there. Hirschberger now here, and a little bit of contact again.
Hirschberger draws the marking foul.
Hirschberger's got a knack now this season of drawing contact. I think he's learned a bit what the refs are going to call for contact. And now a little bit of dispute there amongst the refs as to what the call was. I think it's just going to be a no call. Our referees tonight are Jamie Rhodes, Andrew Medeiros, Sean Miller, Jonathan Levy, and Sam Henderson. Failed to mention that earlier. Jamie Rhodes, the head ref, the one who changed the call there for Hirschberger. Boston's still in control. That's Pryle on the far side, and that's not even going to come close to Horowitz. So New York with a chance to take the lead. They haven't had the lead since it was 3-2. And Murphy will start things off. Murphy's been very involved here the last few points. That pass over to Van Lang. Right on the edge of the end zone. Batower over to Murphy. And that's Jesse Bronner. So New York taking the lead back, 11-10. Jesse Bronner, another one of the two players on New York without a number tonight. New York back on top, 11-10. They last led when it was 3-2. And Lucas Murphy pulling again. Lucas Murphy, I just said it, he's involved everywhere tonight, playing both offense and defense. Boston trying to tie this one back up. That's Jack Hatchett. Hatchett threatening that deep throw a few times, but instead he just dumps it back to Taylor. And we get a whistle. And it's going against Boston. There was a foul away from the disc. And that's Teddy Brawlard-Jarris. And trying to send that one up. And Jesse Bronner with the D. Anderson now starting things off. Here's Murphy. Over to Lee. Lee guarded tightly by Myers. New York trying to extend the lead now. Haven't been able to say that in a while. Anderson with a great leap and grab there. Trying to get it against a much taller defender in Will Neff. And we have a whistle. Again, another whistle against Boston. Boston making a lot of, I'll call them mental mistakes here. Something we haven't seen at all from them this season. Nice pass there by Anderson over to Lee. Lee getting it back to Anderson. Anderson trying to break the mark of Neff, and Lee catches that one. Looked like Hatchett might have had a hand on it too, but Lee able to bring it in. And this one's gonna float, and it's anyone's game. It's actually two New York players coming up with it as Baker, and they end up extending the lead. It's 12-10, New York on top, just under a minute with 50 seconds left to go in half. We'll see what Boston is in. An interesting situation here. They can try and milk the clock, or they could do what I would like to compare a little bit to basketball and sort of a 2-for-1 play and try and get the quick score and work their defense to get the disc back and possibly tie this up at half as Ignacio Ease sends this one deep. A beautiful pull there, and it'll be Alex Cooper that starts things off. So clock is ticking as we approach 45 seconds as charge plays. And Marquette sending this one deep. Danny Clark's got a read on it. Danny Clark's got to wait for all of his teammates to come back, and he gets it back to Cooper. Cooper, a lot of time clicking off the clock here, and we get a whistle. So that'll stop the clock. And quickly, right after the timeout, Boston able to score. Just 18 seconds left to go in the first half. Boston trailing by 1. New York really stormed back there throughout this quarter, and Will Neff will pull. So we'll see if Boston is able to get the disc back in the mere 18 seconds left, but New York will most likely play this safe as Terry and Boston is able to turn it. The pass was intended for Gillis. Hirschberger had it, and Neff's going to throw this one up, just hoping for anything, and he won't be able to get it to a couple of New York players. So that's the way the half's going to end.
Old friend Faust.
And Faust and Neff exchange a couple of words there, but nothing too serious. It's 12-11. New York will go on to halftime with a 1-point lead. Welcome back to Bowditch Field here in Framingham, Massachusetts. Boston Whitecaps are trailing the New York Rumble by 1. Rumble on top 12-11 after a very good second quarter.
Here we go, Boston Whitecaps.
Not an unfamiliar situation for Boston to be in. A couple weeks ago, they trailed Philadelphia going into halftime and ended up having a stellar second half, coming back and winning in big fashion. So we'll see if they can do the same thing tonight. Boston trying to finish off their perfect season and go 10-0. New York, this game tonight doesn't mean a great deal to them. It's really their game tomorrow that they face DC. Both teams, as of right now, with identical 3-5 records. The winner of tomorrow's game will go in and face Boston next Saturday in the Eastern Conference playoff matchup. The location and time actually is still to be determined. I was incorrect in saying that it would be in Medford. We do not know yet where that game will be played, but it will be played, and we could quite be possibly watching a preview of that right now. Boston, if you're just joining us, is without lead player and player coach Jeff Graham tonight. Brandon Malachek getting his first action now of the game. Malachek was out last week. Boston did get a couple of players back this week that they did not have last week, including Danny Clark and Teddy Brouwer-Jarris. They are still without Miles Montgomery Butler, and we haven't seen much of Alex Simmons tonight, though he is dressed. Malachek starting things off here for the Whitecaps. Over to Cooper. Cooper finds Zid. Back to Cooper. Boston trying to get this game tied up again. New York was down as much as 4 in that second quarter, and really had a nice job there as Pryl is very close to Anderson. Back to Malachek. Malachek gets to Clark. Over to Marquette. Marquette finds Anderson. Anderson over to Cooper and back to Marquette. Marquette throws it in the end zone, finding Pryl, and he does. Pryl with a great cut. Good toss from Josh Marquette, and we're tied at 12. 9:02 left to go here in the third quarter. We start over as the game tied at 12. We'll see if New York has any more of that great offense in them that they had in that second quarter. They had a nice game there in the second quarter. Lucas Murphy had a big game there in the second quarter, really playing both offense and defense. And that's Bosco now starting things off. Over to Terry. Terry will send it along the sidelines to Kuzmowicz. And this one's going to be sent deep. A little bit of pushing and shoving going on, and coming up with it over Seth Reinhardt was Ben Faust. Boston
offense back on.
Like I said, not in unfamiliar territory. They trailed to Philadelphia a few weeks back here at home at halftime. And Malachek will start things off after getting the pass from Cooper. Malachek threatening a deep throw over to Marquette. Marquette's got a cutting Danny Clark going deep. Can't get it to him. They wanted to connect there, but he gets it back to Cooper instead. Cooper stuck on that far sideline. Ooh, nice throw there over to Peter Pryle. Pryle being allowed his backhand. Cooper swings it over to Malachek. Malachek, a low throw to Zid, able to come up with it, and Zid finds Peter Pryle all alone with a nice cut in the end zone. We're tied at 13. Just about 8 minutes left to go here in the third quarter. Tied at 13, 8:02 left to go in the third quarter. Peter Pryle, the recipient of that last score. That is Pryle's 5th score of the game already, so a nice job there for Peter tonight. And Will Neff will pull again here for Boston. And here's the pull from Neff. That's going to come down in the hands of Littauer. Over to Bosco. Bosco, Littauer, and it looks like we are the group of three again. Here's Bosco again. Bosco over to Gillis. Here's Herman. Back to Gillis. Gillis threatening that low throw. Guarded by Neff. Over to Anderson. Oh, excuse me, that's Noade. There's Lee. Here's back to Gillis. Here's Littauer, and that one's going to float up, and Hirschberger with the D intercepts that one. Boston will take over. Back to Hirschberger. Now Hirschberger's going to let this one down. He's got his old college teammate Seth Reinhardt all alone in the end zone. The Cornell boys connecting there and taking the lead back. Boston back on top 14-13 after a beautiful throw from John Hirschberger. Seth Reinhardt, the recipient of that one, and 7:08 left to go here in the third quarter. Mike Miller will pull for Boston. Wind, not much of a factor so far tonight. There is still a breeze, and Bosco will pick this one up for New York. Over to Murphy. That's Ease. Again, no number for Ease. Oh, and a bad drop there by Terry. So Boston a chance here. Teddy Brouwer-Jaris. And that one is caught. Quick score there for Boston. Casey Turk. 6:44 left to go here in the third quarter. 15-13. Boston back on top. And get our first look at Teddy Brouwer-Jaris pulling tonight. Teddy's got the, I'd like to say, the most interesting setup there for a pull as he turns his whole body, but it works out beautifully. A great pull there for Brouwer-Jaris. Into the hands of Murphy. Over to Bosco. Bosco gets it over to Whitecaps. And there's a D there. Intercepted. And Taylor's got it now, and quickly over to Misha Horowitz. Boston back up to a 3-goal lead there, up 16-13. Mike Miller to pull. 6:20 remaining here in the third quarter. Boston the benefit of a couple of Ds turned into offense. That's really been their MO this season, is defense into offense. A lot of times their lines are pretty much interchangeable, and we've seen good examples of that tonight. The defensive line going out on offense. And here, basic defensive line here for Boston. That's Lucas Murphy who started things off. Over to Whitecaps. Whitecaps gets it back. Close throw there. Ooh, diving catch. Did he make it? I think it touched the ground. Eric Stevens sure thinks it touched the ground. He was off to the races. Refs are going to discuss this.
Down from up here.
And no catch. That was Kuzmowicz. He bobbled it, and it looked like it must have hit the ground after Dan Quaranta pleading to the referees, but to no avail. Boston takes over. Mike Miller now handling. Mike Miller over to Stevens. Yeah, Eric Stevens was off to the races off the initial no call, and he finds in the end zone for a score. Chris Waite on the score for that one.
Star puller.
After the throw from Eric Stevens, it's now 17-13. Boston back up by 4 as Brower Jarris sends this one deep. Teddy's really got a great pull. Bosco down to receive and gets it over to Terry. Terry right back to Bosco. Bosco over to Faust. Here's Nalade. Here's Bosco again. A little flick up in the air to Terry. Terry trying to get it back to Bosco. It's not there. So he sends this one out to Nalade. There's Alcott. Alcott back to Bosco. They want it in Bosco's hands. Over to Faust. Faust with a nice throw there. Over to Gillis, and he made a nice sliding grab. 4:52 left to go in the third quarter. Boston up 3, 17-14. Lucas Murphy will pull. Lucas Murphy, a jack of all trades here for the New York Rumble. He's had a good game tonight. Cooper coming down with it. And that's Pryle. Pryle again, already with 5 scores in this one. Gets it over to Marquette. Marquette finds Zid. Zid quickly back to Cooper. Cooper over to Anderson. Anderson a hammer. Trying to get it to Danny Clark, and wasn't even close. It goes being intercepted by Bronner. There's Wilkes. Over to Anderson. Boston keeping New York on that far sideline. Here's a hammer from Anderson. Caught by Raymond. Over to Bronner. And Bronner, normally number 12. No number on his jersey there. Here's Raymond. New York trying to keep this one close, and I think we get a little bit of contact going against Boston, so Raymond will take it back and march 10 yards closer. This tapped in. Raymond's got a dump to the tower. Oh, back to Murphy into the tower. Anderson there. Anderson, we didn't see at the very beginning of the game, has ended up playing a huge role in New York's offense. He sends this one clear across the field. Oh, what a catch by Raymond. One-handed grab as he leaps up in the air and dives down with that one. That was a tough catch off a great hammer there from Anderson. 3:13 here in the third quarter. Boston on top, 17-15. And that disc floated up in the air for a while. Finally comes down out 25 yards out of the end zone. Malachek picking this one up. He's going deep right away. Peter Pryle already with 5 scores in this one. He's going to run this one down and reel it in. Number 6 for number 8, Peter Pryle. 18-15. Boston on top. Mike Miller will pull. 3:04 left to go in the third quarter. Brandon Malachek, who missed the first half of this game with a tremendous huck right at the start, as Lee grabs that one back to Bosco. Bosco, Lee, and Terry again, that 3-man weave for New York. Here's Faust trying to get it to Ease. Nice sliding grab there for Ease. Ease gives it back to Terry. Terry over to Faust. There's Corey Lee, not quite in. He's got to take that one back. And dump it back to Terry. Here's Bosco. Grab to Faust, and it ends up going back to Terry for the score. Kevin Terry with the score. Good work there by New York. That's a give and goes on that one. It's now 18-16. 2.5 minutes left to go here in the third quarter. Chris Whitecaps pulling for New York. And Alex Cooper will bring that one in and quickly gets it to Malachek. Malachek again sending this one deep. It's Marquette though this time. This one, a high throw. Marquette's the only Whitecaps player there. And it's Austin Raymond able with the D to knock it away from Marquette. Malachek just throwing that one up there. Back-to-back plays. And that's what he likes to do. And I like to call him Huck first. There's Anderson. Anderson had a nice hammer the last point. Here's Murphy. Murphy back to the tower. Back to Murphy. And that one is intercepted. Off the throw from Murphy. Now here's Anderson over to Clark. Clark gets it to Cooper. Cooper sees Clark. Malachek. Excuse me, that was Clark to Zid. Over to Marquette. So they couldn't get it to Marquette the first time they tried, but he able to grab that one. 19-16. Will's gonna let this one roll, and it will roll out of bounds. Bosco will pick it up. He'll actually pick up a fresh disc. That's Lee catching that one. Quick throw over to Ease. Ease gets it back to Lee. Lee's going to send this one deep. It's intended for Alcott. We get there. Oh, great D there by Hirschberger. There's a nice throw from Lee. Intended for Alcott, but Hirschberger read that one all the way, and with the size advantage, able to knock it down. And Jake Taylor will pick it up and get things going here for Boston. Boston can milk the clock if they'd like as we approach 30 seconds to see if they're aware of the clock. That's Hatchett. Back to Hirschberger. Hirschberger's going to send this one deep. I don't know if...
Just a bit too far.
If Stevens just really couldn't catch up to that one. So we get a timeout now. 21 seconds left to go. And it's 19-16 Boston. Terry starting this one off for New York, sending it deep right away. And Gillis the intended receiver, and it floats in just out of his reach. But we get another timeout. Boston will call this one, and they're going to switch their offense back out. 13 seconds actually were added to the clock, not just 7. So Boston will have a chance here as it ticks away. This one is not going to be deep enough. And it ends up being D'd, so New York will have a chance for one hop, really. Here it is. Whistle blows. It does have the distance. Faust with the throw, but it's Brandon Malachek that ends up catching it. So that'll bring it into the third quarter. Boston holds on to their 3-goal lead. It's 19-16. Boston on top. Fourth quarter coming up right after this. 19-16, Boston back on top if they were able to retake the lead there in the third quarter. 10 minutes left to go in this one as we begin the fourth quarter. John Hirschberger will pull for Boston. Hirschberger's pull, a nice one, and it will come down to Bosco. Bosco over to Murphy. Here's Whitecaps. New York, the game's still well within their reach. Here's Bosco. That's Ease, back to Bosco. New York did a nice job in the third quarter coming back as Nalade catches that one over to Whitecaps. They did a nice job in the third quarter and were able to overcome a 3-goal deficit. So we'll see if they can do it here in the fourth as we get a whistle after Bosco made that last catch. And I believe this, yes, it is going against New York. That'll push them back 10 yards as 31 seconds have ticked off the clock. And that'll be a turn. Jake Taylor will pick it up for Boston. A little low throw, but able to grab that one up. It looked, yes, it was Jack Hatchett with the catch. Teddy Brouwer-Jarris here to pull for the Whitecaps. They're on top 20-16 after Jack Hatchett was the recipient of the last score. Teddy sends this one deep. And that'll be Lee to start things off for New York. Here's Murphy. Murphy right up to Bronner. To Baker. Here's Littauer, he's going to send this one deep to Raymond. And able to run it down is Austin Raymond from Ross Littauer. 20-17, Boston on top by 3. Lucas Murphy pulling again for New York. 8:56 left to go in the game. This is the last game in the regular season for Boston. They came in at 9-0, trying to cap off a perfect season. And we get a whistle going against New York. So Brandon Malachek will walk that disc up. 10 yards. Boston without player coach Jeff Graham tonight. Also without Dave Truesdale, Alex Simmons, and Miles Montgomery Butler. We have not seen Miles in quite some time. Quick throw there. Ooh, nice layout attempt there by Anderson, but not able to pick it up. New York came in 3-5. This game does not have a ton of meaning to them other than maybe to play the spoilers to Boston's perfect season. Whitecaps trying to hit Anderson deep and ends up just going straight to Brian Zidd. So Boston will get the turn. Here's Peter Pryl. New York has a big game tomorrow against DC Current. Both teams at 3-5. DC playing Philadelphia tonight. And pretty much the winner of that game. Ooh, great D there by Raymond. Great layout D. Here's Anderson. Back to Whitecaps. Whitecaps has been involved a lot tonight, as well as Lucas Murphy with the disc now, and he gives it back to Whitecaps. Whitecaps setting this one deep. It's Anderson, the intended target. Zidd is on him, and neither one of them can reach inside. It's Anderson. Anderson for the Whitecaps, that is, that comes up with it. Anderson against Anderson. Clark sends that one over to Marquette. Again, New York without a couple of key players, mainly Chris Mazur out. Mazur in the MVP race here in the inaugural season of the MLU, along with Boston's own Jeff Graham. And if you came to see the two-star players, unfortunately you did not get to see them in this one tonight. Here's Malachek over to Marquette. Marquette looked like he wanted to go deep on that one. Instead he goes over to Zidd. Zidd sends it over to Clark. Gets it back to Marquette, right on the goal line. It's very crowded right now. And there's a whistle, and that's going to be a stall count called on Marquette. So New York will take over. Remember that it is only 7 seconds here in the MLU as opposed to the traditional 10-second stall. Murphy will start things off here for New York. That's Bronner. Back to Baker. Raymond was the intended target on that one and ends up sailing out of bounds. So Boston will get it right back. Quick moving quarter here as we approach 5.5 minutes remaining. Malachek will start things off. He finds Pryl. Boston will play next week as they host the Eastern Conference Finals playoff matchup as Cooper finds Zid. 5:28 left to go here in the game. Mike Miller set to pull. Boston on top 21-17. Nice pull there from Miller. And it comes down into Bosco's hands. Bosco and Terry once again. Been hearing their names all night. Bosco swings it back to Terry. Is over to Latauer. He can't handle that one, and Miller will pick it up. Quick flick over there to Roth. Terry gets it back to Miller. Miller's going to send this one deep. All alone, Casey Turp. And for the score is Casey Turp. 22-17. Boston continuing to pad their lead. 5:02 left to go in the game. Teddy Brower-Jarris will spin around and pull once again.
With the spinorama pull.
And Alcott, excuse me, that's Murphy coming down with it. Over to Terry. That's Harmon. And we have a whistle, and that one's going against Boston. Well, Herman has it back again. Gets it over to Terry. Nice grab there by Kuzmowicz. Back to Terry. Here's Murphy. Murphy and Terry. Good cut there by Terry. Kuzmowicz with the catch there from Faust. Here's Ease. Ease, a little floater pass. Grabbed by Terry. Terry the scuba. It's going to be a little too low. Intended for Alcott. Here's Reinhardt. Nice diving grab there by Hatchett. Taylor over to Jarris. Brower-Jarris. Finding Neff. Back to Teddy. Teddy Brower-Jarris. Got a couple of cuts. Neff and Taylor. He goes to Neff. Neff unintentionally double teamed briefly, but there is a whistle. And it's going against Boston. So Neff will take this right back to just beyond midfield. Neff hammers it over, trying to get it to Hatchett. Hatchett able to reel it in. Hatchett, nice throw there to Neff. Neff finds Terry Roth. Terry Roth, his second score tonight. So a potential playoff preview right now. That will be decided tomorrow when New York and DC meet. Boston doesn't really have a preference of who they'd rather play, talking to head coach Jason Adams before the game. I feel they know New York maybe a little bit better, especially having played them tonight, as we get a wheel, as Nalade had that one, but it's going against New York, so the disc will go back to Baker, and he'll start things over. Here's Lee. Lee trying to get it over to the tower and just couldn't come up with it. He did make a dive, but Hirschberger trying to find Doherty, and it does. Sean Doherty, his first score of the game. And it's been a tough game here in the second half for New York. A couple of mental mistakes, but some good defense there by Boston as Brower-Jarris sends a absolute beautiful pull down the field. Lee starting this one off. Lee over to Herman. That's Bronner. Gets it back to Lee. Lee's going to send this one deep. And not able to come up with it there. A little bobble. It was all alone. So Boston again taking over. And the clock will continue to tick away. We're under 2 minutes now, approaching a minute and a half. Scuba throw there to Doherty. Doherty gets it over to Neff. Neff to Reinhardt. Here's Brower Jairus. Boston content with really just taking their time as Terry Roth catches that one. They've just got to pretty much milk the clock here. Back to Brower Jairus. Back to Roth. Nice little game of catch between them. And Terry's throw is going to be wide and low to Jack Hatchett, the intended target. So New York takes over. Here's Lee to Bronner. Back to Lee. We'll see what New York wants to do here. Goal differential could play a factor in a potential tiebreaker, but that would mean that DC all would have to win tonight. New York could quite possibly be the last team with the disc here. Good layout D attempt there. Jairus. Here's Anderson. Loosely guarded by Neff. So Boston just content here to let the clock run as we approach the final 5 seconds. Bronner is going to send a hammer into the end zone, and it's knocked away to finish the game with a D. Boston wins this one handedly, 24-17. They had a little bit of trouble there at the end of the first half, but they end up with a 7-goal win. A perfect season at 10-0. New York falls to 3-6, but their real game will be tomorrow against the DC Current. The winner of that game will face Boston next week in the Eastern Conference playoff matchup. That will do it for us. I'm Jeff Poster, and thanks to all our crew tonight. We'll see you next week as Boston takes on the winner of New York, DC.